Yeah, we're back on Sportsbit. Betting Insight today, Thursday, October 6th. Big game breakdown. The Dodgers and the Nationals. Then it's college football. Oklahoma, Texas, Alabama against Arkansas. We also have Tennessee against Texas A&M and Washington at Oregon. Can they exercise the demons? They've lost 12 in a row to the Ducks. We'll get to that and we'll look to stay red hot in football with the play of the day. Nobody better than Mad Bum in a big game. Maybe nobody better ever. And the Giants get 3 in the ninth, the Gillespie home run, and now the Cubbies have to play the Giants on Friday night, Teddy. What a game.
Yeah, it's an even year. Here come the Giants.
That's right.
That was fun to watch. Sometimes the pitchers' duels, like the 2-2 game in the extra innings between the Blue Jays and Orioles, didn't compel me the way this 0-0 game did last night, man. That was a lot of fun to watch. Not a good result for the house. Nothing but Giants money. The G-men went off minus 120 in that range in a game where they were underdogs at the open, where they were pick 'em when we picked them on Sportsbit yesterday. But Mad Bum, 120 pitches, 9 wins in a row when facing elimination. And, the Mets didn't even have any chances, really. They had a leadoff double in the 5th. And other than that, there were no scoring chances whatsoever for the New York Mets.
Yep, 23 scoreless innings and elimination games for Mad Bum. Never allowed a hit. This is ESPN Stats and Info tweet. Never allowed a hit with a runner in scoring position on the road in his postseason career. 0 for 24. This is ridiculous.
The Mets were 0 for 4 with runners in scoring position last night, which tells you how few scoring chances they had. But what about Gillespie, the number 8 hitter? 191 at-bats this year. He does have 34 career home runs in his 1,344 career at-bats. A guy who started 2 years for the White Sox back in 13 and 14. But other than that, he's been a guy coming off the bench since getting his first cup of coffee in the big leagues back in 2008.
The walk to Panic was huge. Because if he gets Panic out, first base is open, and I'm sure they walk Gillespie, so they have to pinch hit for Mad Bum. That was enormous.
Yup, sure was. But let's talk about this, Paulie, because I seem to remember on yesterday's show you were yelling at me about how you have to put Britton in a non-safe situation.
So, of course. Yeah, Buck
what did Terry Collins do?
Buck Showalter was horrible. It was one of the worst managerial moves I've ever seen.
So look what Terry Collins did last night. He puts Familia in a non-safe situation, and boy, you see what happened?
Well, he didn't have it.
Good.
Yeah, he didn't get it done. He stunk.
Yeah, when you use your closers in a non-closing role, I'm telling you, you're rolling the dice. It's not the way to play it.
Did Buck Showalter put his team in the best position to win? No.
Absolutely.
No, he absolutely did not. So you're telling me Game 7 of the World Series, you're taking Ubaldo over Britton. And let me tell you something, too. It got worse for Showalter because on July 31st, the Orioles played the Blue Jays in Toronto, 2-2 bottom of the 10th, and he brought Britton in for 2 frickin' innings. But he can't do it in a winner-go-home situation.
Sure, and it's also a different situation because the Mets were the home team. Therefore, there's not going to be a safe situation. The New York Mets last night. So that's, in my mind, the biggest difference and why you can argue that you can use Familia there. I'm just giving you grief because you really can't have it both ways.
You got it. Well, other than Big Sexy, Collins running out of pitchers. I wanted to see Colon against Cueto in the 10th inning. That would have been fun. But should Cub fans be nervous? Or do they sit back, relax, and say, okay, no excuses now, and the Cubs organization, because they only see Mad Bum once in a 5-game series if it goes 5?
If you're a Cubs fan and you're not nervous, you're not a Cubs fan.
Yeah,
you're right. That's just how it is. If you're a Chicago Cubs, you'll be nervous until Game 7 of the final out of the 4th win of the World Series. Should the Chicago Cubs make it that?
1908 for a reason. Imagine if they won 103 games and can't get out of the first round. Holy Christ! ESPN 2. We follow every conference. We follow these teams. Arkansas State -5 in the turnover battle won the game.
Yeah, that was, an epic comeback, an epic final drive for Arkansas State. And let's make this really clear. You're going to see a lot of these weeknight ESPN 2 games. They're going to feature MAC schools or Sunbelt schools or Conference USA schools. And every single talking head you see on TV, not one of them follows those programs. Not one of them follows those conferences. That's what Sportsbit is for. We will give you quality information on teams that we pay attention to, not nonsense on teams that we don't pay attention to. So let's talk about that Arkansas State-Georgia Southern matchup last night. Did you see the 4th and 16 conversion Oh man, Georgia Southern did not get the job done defensively. But Arkansas State, they played Toledo, they played Auburn, they played Utah State, and then they had that we're so beat up home loss to FCS Central Arkansas before their bye. Now all of a sudden stepping down in class after facing those quality defenses. 343 rushing yards, 7 yards per carry against Georgia Southern.
You might see that once a decade. A team's -5 in the turnover battle and wins the game.
Oh yeah, when they're underdogs, I mean you might
That
see
too.
if they're a big favorite.
Jesus.
But they were +6.5, +7 at kickoff. They were -5 in turnovers, and they won the game straight up. That, folks, is called a right side.
Yes, NFL injuries. Carson Palmer out. Drew Stanton in. 49ers money and under money. No surprise there. Tyler Eifert can't get on the field. He is out Sunday against the Cowboys. Now it's a back injury, according to ESPN. Trevor Siemian downgraded to questionable. Jay Cutler is downgraded to doubtful. And the Bears put White on IR. This guy is jinxed with the Bears. Is he hurt again now?
Yeah, I mean, the last couple of weeks, Kevin White's been really good. He's been Brian Hoyer's best weapon. So that's a big loss for Chicago. The fact that Cutler's doubtful, probably good news for the Bears in that ball game. Siemian, as we said, he's been on the fence. We don't know. We're likely not to know about Siemian until Friday at the earliest, and it may not be until a game-time decision. Tyler Eifert, as you mentioned, for Cincinnati, they're not scoring touchdowns in the red zone. Even that blowout over Miami hung around because the Bengals couldn't punch it in. That is the Eifert injury is a big piece of the equation why they're struggling to score touchdowns when they're getting near the goal line.
Talked to Jimmy Vaccaro today on my radio show. He said this weather, Hurricane Matthew, is going to be a giant pain in the ass. Here's your update. Tulane, Central Florida postponed till November 5th. Old Dominion, UMass, and now is moved up now to Friday night. The governor of South Carolina said not looking good for South Carolina, Georgia on Saturday night, and the NFL could move the Tennessee-Miami game to Tennessee.
They could, but all of this is still questions. LSU, Florida, supposed to go off as scheduled at noon on Saturday. That's the ESPN game. And, from the storm tracking that we're looking at, there's still a fairly wide path that this storm could take. But Jimmy Vaccaro is absolutely right. It is a giant pain in the ass when you have these hurricane weekends down on the East Coast where all of a sudden you got games in question, you got everybody scrambling, games on and off the board, games getting rescheduled, season win totals in jeopardy, all kinds of things that books have to deal with when it comes to something as simple as canceling or postponing a game due to weather.
How about Kershaw, Scherzer, Oklahoma, Texas, and Texas A&M coming up next? Big game breakdown on SportsBit. Betting insight today on SBRpicks.com.
Go to SBRodds.com. Browse, compare, and shop live odds available at top online sportsbooks.
All right, we're back on Big Game Breakdown, as always, live odds, sportsbookreview.com. One baseball game, Friday afternoon, 2:30 Pacific. The Dodgers take on the Nationals. I believe it's on Fox Sports 1. Kershaw, $1.50, 6 the total against Scherzer. Might the injury make Kershaw even better in the postseason? Now, he struggled in the postseason. More on that coming up. But only 149 innings pitched this year. Buster Olney, ESPN, said it's the best 149 innings pitched he's ever seen since covering Major League Baseball. He had an awesome season, Teddy.
He did, but look at this number, okay? Max Scherzer, is he going to win the Cy Young Award? He might. He's certainly one of the favorites. The Nationals had a better record than the Dodgers. Scherzer's going to win the Cy Young Award. They're at home, and they're $1.50 underdogs. That's insane. This line is insane, given those circumstances. That being said, you have a fresh Kershaw. And since he's come back, you talked about how great he was before he got hurt. Since he's come back, 28 innings of work, 4 earned runs, 18 hits, 2 walks, 27 strikeouts. He's been every bit as good as he was before the injury. And, look at the graphic. Look at the full season comparisons. Even though Scherzer, Cy Young caliber, Kershaw, he's just a bum. He's just a guy that's really, really hard to bet against. He's the best starter by a wide margin. And nobody has this big of a gap against Max Scherzer. Clayton Kershaw does.
Why have both of these guys struggled in the postseason? With Kershaw, you can say the Cardinals have had his number. He's had some horrible starts against the Cardinals. He beat the Mets on short rest. He beat the Braves a couple times. But other than that, I mean, I think the Cardinals have his number, but Kershaw certainly with an ERA, I think it's 4 and change. Not good in the postseason.
Sure, but it's short sample sizes. Again, if you have one bad start and you get lit up, guess what? That's going to affect your postseason ERA forever. That being said, Scherzer in particular, he's off 228 innings of work. That's his third straight season of 220 plus innings. And his numbers, postseason, 4 and 3, 3.73 ERA over 10 starts, good, but not completely dominant. But we got to talk about the weather issues in this ballgame, Paulie, too.
Yeah, because it's interesting. The Friday day game is between Boston and Cleveland, and shadows are going to be a big problem there. That's one of the early starts, but also is his 2:30 Pacific start. Maybe because of Hurricane Matthew, shadows will not be a problem.
Well, that's just it. I mean, the starting time would definitely bring shadows to play. Man, that's a 5:30 start time. That's an awkward start time for a game in D.C., and it'd be brutal. You've been trying to hit. I mean, it's hard enough trying to hit Scherzer and Kershaw when you can see the ball. If you can't see the ball, it's even worse. But the advanced forecast says it's going to be cloudy and maybe rainy. And if it's cloudy and rainy, well, do we see shorter starts from these guys? Do they not even get in the game because there might be rain delays? Lots of issues to pay attention to with the weather for Dodgers Nationals. Has a legitimate potential to impact the game.
Yep, you're right with the unique start time, but 4 playoff games on Friday, and they want the Cubs at night in prime time. College football now, live odds, sportsbookreview.com. Oklahoma and Texas. Oklahoma 10, 73.5 the total. Sooners with a chip on their shoulder. Lost last year to Texas, 24-17 as 16-point favorites. Come on, Bob Stoops. Charlie Strong said he's mad as hell. He's not going to take it anymore. He takes over the play calling on defense. Vance Bedford has been demoted. And, hey, come on. I mean, look what it's happened. It's been embarrassing, this Texas defense so far.
Well, sure. Look at the graphic. I mean, you give up 47 in Notre Dame. 37 of those came in regulation. 444 yards in that game. Against Cal, you give up 50. Against Okie State, you give up 49, 500-plus yards in both of those games. There have been 119 passes thrown against Texas so far. Okay, 199 yards allowed through the air. 0 interceptions so far for that Longhorn defense. So, when you talk about Charlie Strong, let's look at his quote. I don't think it's desperate times, desperate measures. Sometimes you feel like you just need to breathe new energy into some of these guys and just hope this will be a good move for them. And it will be.
Your job's on the line. It's an asinine quote. You're going to be fired.
There's something there's some truth to that sometimes having somebody else coming into the meetings and leading the meetings and calling some plays is going to give the group a different focus, a little bit more energy. But it's not like Texas just has to stop Baker Mayfield in this game. They also got to stop the Samaj Mixon duo in that Oklahoma ground game and a pair of backs that are averaging, 6.5, 7 yards a carry this season?
Yep, P. Ryan and Mixon are great for Oklahoma in the backfield. They felt the loss last year, got away from their focus, which is run the ball, and they did that against TCU. P. Ryan and Mixon, 33 carries, 203 yards, and 3 touchdowns at TCU, getting back to the proper mindset there, Tenny.
Yeah, and again, last year against Texas, 67 yards on the ground. I would anticipate Oklahoma to be running first and passing second in this ballgame, but we are talking about a game where both teams are loaded with playmakers. Both teams are going to play pretty darn fast.
All right, game number 3. Big game breakdown, live odds, sportsbookreview.com. Tennessee at Texas A&M. Aggies 7, 57 the total. A&M's ranked 8th, they're 5-0. Tennessee's 9th, they're 5-0. Winner in the hunt for the playoffs. Loser could be out. And Tennessee, this roller coaster, 4 wins when they've been down double digits, Teddy.
Yeah, and this might be the spot where certainly the markets are expecting Tennessee to be a little bit flat. Because let's not forget, this brutal crossover against the SEC West, they got A&M this week. They're home against Bama next week. So, brutal draw. And, not that A&M's not a team that you get up for, but with Alabama coming to Knoxville next Saturday, after the craziness that they've been through over the course of the last month, you just wonder if they used up a little bit too much energy in those rallies versus Florida and Georgia, trailing by 21 and 17 points and coming back to win both of those ball games.
Is Kyle Field one of the toughest places to play for a quarterback? Might be. Defensive coordinator John Chavis said, who also held that job at Tennessee and LSU, Quote, I've been in every stadium in this league except one, and lots around the country. I've never been in a stadium that can come alive like this one at Texas A&M. He might be right about that.
Yeah, and of course the A&M pass rushing Tambo of Myles Garrett. He didn't play last week. He's expected back here. And Deshaun Hall. That might be the best defensive end pass rush duo in the country. So when you have a nasty crowd and a nasty pair of defensive ends coming at you on every play, I'm not convinced this is going to be the best day for Josh Dobbs, especially considering that Tennessee running game. Hurd and Kamada averaging, 4.2 yards per carry. Not bad, but not good enough to carry the offense.
You know what's odd? Trevor Knight is moving the ball, doing a good job with the offense, but is a runner. He's not doing much as a passer.
The bottom line for A&M is they have so far exceeded all expectations. They, in my powering numbers, are a legitimate top 10 team, and whether they're running, whether they're throwing, the bottom line is their quarterback play has been effective from day one this year, and it looks to continue against Tennessee on Saturday.
Up next, Washington, Oregon, Alabama, Arkansas, and the play of the day, 18-7-1 on the season in football. Coming up on SportsBit, betting insight today on SBRpicks.com.
Hey, SportsBit viewers. Yesterday, Mike Brenner and I passed on the San Francisco Mets game, which we agree in retrospect was probably a smart move. And in today's card, we've got two games, and Mike Brenner and I have picks on both games, right, Mike Brenner?
Yes,
You're feeling good about
do.
it, right?
Absolutely. It's playoff time, guys, and Big Poppy's heading out, and he's going to do it the right way. So when you guys are finished over there at that house, Teddy and Paulie, come on over to our house, because we're cashing tickets too.
Back on SportsBit. Big game breakdown continues. Live odds, sportsbookreview.com. Washington on the road against Oregon. The Huskies 9. 69.5 the total. How serious is the path for Chris Peterson and Washington to the playoffs? Could be favored in every game the rest of the season. And you look, Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, if they win out, they're likely in. And it didn't help Washington that they played Idaho, Portland State, and Rutgers non-conference. But a great performance on national TV against Stanford. But now they have to exercise the demons, Teddy. They've lost 12 in a row to Oregon and 11 by double digits.
Sure, but let's talk about this as a concept first. Here are the Washington Huskies. We're talking about Alabama, clear path if they win out. Ohio State, clear path if they win out. Clemson, clear path if they win out. No one has talked about Washington into national champions in the same breath in, at least 15 years. So this is real for the Huskies. They're going to be favorites in every game the rest of the way. They're better on paper and based on powering numbers than every other team in a loaded conference. Now, you talk about the fact they didn't play anyone. And it'll be an interesting decision for the committee if it comes down to Washington or Houston. But wait, we're not going to have these discussions in the first week of October or the third week of October. We'll start talking about this stuff really in November. But that Rutgers, Idaho, Portland State trio may end up coming back to haunt them. That being said, you talk about the fact they've lost 12 straight to the Ducks, 11 of those losses coming by double-digit margins, but Oregon's been the better program. They've been the better team. Again, for the last 15 years, it's been consistent. Oregon's been better. That's not the case in 2016. Washington is better. Washington is way better. And the Ducks, their defense is a mess, injury-riddled, and looks like they're going to go with the freshman quarterback and build for the future. That's not a good sign against a team like Washington.
What do you think of that? I mean, this is quite the conundrum for Helfrich because he's on the hot seat. I would have fired him already. Fans there want Scott Frost, who's doing a great job in Central Florida. Here, he's coaching for his job, but does he say, all right, I'm gonna play the young guy?
It's an interesting question. If I'm Helfrich, hell no, I don't play the young guy. And not against this defense. This is the wrong defense to go and get thrown into the mix with little experience against. We talked about Washington last week. We had him as one of our plays of the day against Stanford. Loaded on the defensive line, bunch of playmakers in the secondary. That's not a combination that you want for a quarterback that is facing his first tough competition for the first time. Mark Helfrich, quote, everywhere across the board there's competition. Naturally, that position, the quarterback position, gets a lot of blame, a lot of credit, neither warranted. We're making adjustments everywhere. But you got the quote from the quarterback coach, David Yost, there, Paulie?
I have it.
That one, to me, I think speaks volumes about where they're at right now, which is we don't even have a quarterback, let alone their defense.
Yes, his quote is, who's right now the best guy to lead us to a victory is how we evaluate. Prukop's experience and now playing within the system for the first 5 games, understanding what we're doing in the run game, understanding what we're doing in the protections are a bonus. But Justin gets that every day in practice, but it's different in practice mode than a game mode, end quote. And you're going against a nasty defense, and Stanford couldn't move the ball on him.
No, and look, and neither Prukop nor Herbert can help a miserable defense that's riddled with injuries. The first 2 Pac-12 games, they played Colorado and Washington State. That duo went for 92 points and 1,244 yards. That's both points and yards, the highest allowed in back-to-back games for Oregon in the history of the program. And look, I was a Brady Hoke fan. What he did at Ball State in the MAC hasn't been done before or since. He got them to 12 wins. Ball State, all right. He took San Diego State, which was in the doldrums. It was pre-Rocky Long, and turned them, had the best season at San Diego State that they'd had in decades. He crashed and burned at Michigan, and I'm not convinced he's the right style of defensive coordinator to fit in the Pac-12 so far. That Ducks defense has been pretty darn bad.
I'll agree with all that. Last game, liveoddsportsbookreview.com. Bama hits the road to take on Arkansas. Alabama 14, 49 the total. Bielema brings that physical style. They won't be intimidated against Alabama. 2 years ago on the road, they led 13-7 in the fourth quarter, or at home rather, and they lost by 1. Last year on the road, they led 7-3 late in the third quarter. Bama hits an 81-yard bomb, and they win by 13. But if they keep it close here, can they win this game?
Well, I mean, of course they can. You know, Alabama has won plenty of championships during this era with 1 loss and 1 regular season loss, and teams like Arkansas or Ole Miss and the likes have been often the culprits for Alabama taking that loss. And look, you know, they don't get intimidated by Alabama. They're not pushed around in the trenches by Alabama. Alabama's offense hasn't really worked well against that Razorbacks defense. They led in the fourth quarter last year. They led late in the third the year before. So, you know, I mean, I can understand the concept of taking the points. I wouldn't argue if you like the Arkansas side, if you want to take a little taste of the money line. Nothing wrong with sprinkling a little money line wager in when you're taking big and not huge underdogs, but underdogs in that 10, 14-point range in college. Absolutely, they can win the game outright.
You wonder if Saban and Kiffin missed an opportunity here because Hurts still needs some work, and they didn't do much offensively against Kentucky and Kent State.
Well, no, and especially as the games progressed. You know, they didn't throw any passes in the fourth quarter against Kent. They only threw 3 in the fourth against Kentucky. And I know Hurts needs work, but at the same time, Saban's not worried about building margins. If Alabama wins every game by 1 point and wins the SEC championship game by 1 point, they will be in the college football playoff. There are certain teams that need margins because they need to attract attention. Alabama's not one of those teams.
What do you think of Austin Allen, and can they move the ball through the air on Alabama?
I'll tell you what. So far, Austin Allen looks better than his older brother, Brandon. You know, 67% completions, almost 68%, in fact. More than 1,200 passing yards, 12 touchdowns, only 2 interceptions. And remember, we were talking about how tough that A&M defense is and that pass rush is. He held his own at Cowboy Stadium versus that Aggies defense. 371 yards and 2 touchdowns without an INT. I've been impressed with Austin Allen so far.
All right, money time, play of the day. Winner yesterday with the Giants, 18-7-1 on the football season. Let's make it 6 out of 7 in football. Where are we going?
Well, let's go to the Red River rivalry. Texas and Oklahoma, game number 359, 360. Early start action on Saturday. Are we going to take that up and over the total? 73.5, the current number. You can find plenty of 73s out there. But we called 73.5 as the line. That's what we're going to grade ourselves on. Texas, Oklahoma. Again, we got a fast pace. We got a ton of playmakers. And we have a couple of defenses that haven't really been able to stop anybody so far. I'm expecting points in bunches. Sooners and Longhorns over. That's our play of the day.
All right, amen to that. Weekend preview up tomorrow. Plenty of NFL. Hurricane Matthew update. MLB playoff recap. Day games, baby. It's going to be nasty with the Blue Jays and the Rangers. We'll run it all down coming up Friday on SportsBit. Betting and Insight today on SBRPicks.com.